How are you today, sir?
I'm dandy, thank you.
Well, it's end of the year, and we try to do a lot this time of year. We try to give you some good Christmas gift ideas, try to give away a few gifts, but another thing we try to do is, we've partnered with a lot of people over the years, and we don't want to overwhelm you sometimes with so many that you're like you can't take it in. So there's certain ones that reoccur that we know what they do, we know why they do it, and we know they're effective, we know how they are extremely responsible with your giving. But the fact of the matter is, as Morgan Freeman just said, fact of the matter is, at the end of the year, you're looking at how your business did, or maybe how you did as a family, and you have some money that you could give, and it would probably be much better served, giving it to something that matters as opposed to letting the government have it. So there's opportunities here for your end of the year giving, and we definitely want to give you some of those opportunities as well. And one of those we've been working with for years, Big Oak Ranch, and Brodie Croyle is with us today. Brodie's dad, John Croyle, has been on the program a number of times, some great Rick and Bubba memories. Brodie is the executive director now of Big Oak Ranch, a Christian home for children needing a chance in life, and have been through just horrific things. And it's kind of that second chance. All of us have been given a second chance in Christ, and this is kind of, the hands and feet of Jesus to give a second chance to children that need a Christian home. And, boy, the success stories that come out of this place are unbelievable. So, Brodie, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thank y'all for having me here.
I noticed that your dad boldly sent you here unattended today.
He did. We might need to call him and wake him up. He might be sleeping in this morning.
Please.
That's what that's about.
So you're the new executive director there. When I say new, you've been doing it a little while, but I'm talking about for the guy, this first time you've been on the show, like, hey, I'm the executive director. Dad's not here. I'm a grown man, got my own family, running the ranch. And so, but the only problem is that means that now we can have fun at his expense, and he can't interrupt us.
Absolutely. And, nobody's better at that than my mother. So, it might be we might need to call in to her a little bit later and get her
Well, that was one of my complaints over the years. I think a lot of your mom, I've met her several times, very nice lady, but we always wanted to talk to her, and your dad kind of blocked us out.
He did.
And,
a little shield action there. Blocking her out. He's like,
he does that on purpose.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, everybody knows my dad. He's big and he's tall and he's just got this
his
voice.
knees are bad.
They're not anymore. He's got new artificial ones. Thank
Does
you,
he?
Dr. Kane. Shout out.
Yeah.
Why
But
didn't he talk to him about that?
he, you kind of get this feeling he's not really scared of anybody.
Right.
And he's just this big figure. That man is scared to death of my mama.
Yeah. I understand
He is scared to death of my mama, as we all are.
Yeah.
But, his favorite line's every man's either henpecked or a liar. So
it's one or the other.
He just lives with it.
Yeah, it's one or the other. I just sent his quote to a guy in email today who was kidding around with me about, Christmas at home, and he goes, you're henpecked. And I said, yeah, 90% of us are and 10% lie. You know what I mean? And so I got that straight from your dad.
Well,
So
that's him.
obviously, there's a number of things to talk about today, but I do want to get this, make sure before we get to talking about, fun with you and the NFL, and eventually you're about to spin the wonderful Wheel of Meat. But let's talk a little bit about maybe somebody is there right now and they've heard about Big Oak Ranch, and it's hard for me to believe in the last 21 years that somebody says, I never heard about this, but they are. We get new markets, new things happen. I get emails every week. Hey, I just discovered the show for the first time. So they may not even know what we're talking about. So tell the audience, especially those that may be looking for somewhere to invest.
Well, I'll just start from the beginning and how it all started. My dad always talks about plays in life and plays that get us all to where we are. And, that there's plays in a football game, and that's what Coach Bryant would always talk about, were these plays that would get us to the end of the game. And you're either going to be the hero or be the GOAT, and the choice is up to you. And one of those plays that the reason I'm sitting with you right now is happened when Dad was 19 years old. He went and worked at a summer camp and met a little boy from the streets of New Orleans whose mother was a prostitute, and he was the banker and the timekeeper for his mother, and literally ran her business and would come up, knock on the door, go, Mom, I got the money, the next one's here. Oh, wow. And my dad shared with this little boy how he could become a Christian. And the boy came back the following summer and shared with my dad word for word what he had taught him the summer before. And he realized at that point in time he had been given a gift. And he went on and played at Alabama, was All-American at Alabama, and had a chance to go play pro football. And he went to Coach Bryant, and he said, Coach Bryant, I want to take the money from pro football and start a home for kids. And Coach Bryant said, don't play pro ball unless you're willing to marry it. He said, tell me more about this home you're talking about. And Dad got to sit there for an hour and share with this great man this vision, this dream he had for this home. And he walked out of that office and never looked back. And since that time, there's been over 2,000 children that have called Big Oak Ranch home. And right now we have the Big Oak Boys Ranch in Gadsden, the Big Oak Girls Ranch in Springville, and Westbrook Christian School in Rainbow City. And the way we do it is we set it up. There's 10 homes at the Boys Ranch, 10 homes at the Girls Ranch. And we put a godly man and woman in that home, and we give them 8 boys or we give them 8 girls, and we say, show them what God intended for a family to look like. Show them what God intended for a husband and wife to look like. And, you know, success, people, believe it or not, people ask us, you know, what's your success rate? Man, we're talking about kids. We're talking about human beings.
Right.
But true success for us is 20 years from now. And it's that kid, I'm sitting here looking at kids on the computer here, 20 years from now, are they going to break the cycle? Are they going to change generations? And are they going to grow up to be the mom and the dad that God intended for them to be, and be the mom and the dad that they got to watch every single day? And I always say the best way to learn is to watch. And a quick story, my first play in life, and the reason that I'm for sure that I'm sitting here, I was 5 years old. It was 3 days before Christmas. And I was standing at the front of the administration building at the Boys Ranch. Y'all have been there. And I'm standing there with my dad, and I got my arm wrapped around his leg, and this old beat-up truck pulls up, and it pulls down to the bottom right in front of us, and this guy gets out, and he's got smoking a cigarette, and he throws it out, and he stomps it, and he walks up, and he looks up at my dad and says, you the man in charge? And y'all knowing my dad said, unless you want to shoot the man in charge, I'd be him. And he said,
let's clarify why you're here.
Let's clarify why you're here. But he said, well, I got a new girlfriend. She told me I got to choose. It's either her or my boys. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to leave my 3 boys with you. And out they got. The 11-year-old got out and said, no more fighting, no more getting beat up, no more going hungry. He said, this sounds like a pretty good deal to me. I'm in. 10-year-old got out and said, I told y'all he was going to leave us. And he took off running. It took our social workers 3 hours to catch him and bring him back and let him know everything was going to be okay. And then my play got out. 6-year-old little boy, he got out and he walked around and he realized what was going on. And he jumped up and he put his arms around his daddy's neck. And he said, no. He said, you're my daddy. He said, you can't leave me the same way Mama did. And I watched my dad reach and grab this little boy and peel his hands off his daddy's neck, pull him into his chest. The dad got in the truck and drove off. They never saw him again until they graduated high school. And this boy grew up my best friend. We grew up playing baseball, rodeoing the whole 9 yards together. And he was in my wedding. And what's so cool, and to tell you a success story and to tell you what Big Oak Ranch is all about and what we try to do on a daily basis, and what God uses us as tools for kids just like this, is he called me about 6 months ago, and he said, what you doing? I was like, I'm at the office, buddy. What's going on? He said, I want you to be in my wedding. I'm getting married in November. I said, man, I'd be honored to. I said, tell me about her. He said, Brodie, she's the godliest woman I ever met. He said, the first date we ever went on, he said, we're sitting there, and we sit down, and she looks over, and she goes, you love Jesus? He goes, I sure do. She goes, well, we can work anything out there. And he said, from that point in time on, she's been my best friend, and I want you to be a part of it. It's like, man, I'd be honored. And we just went on talking. And before he got off the phone, he said, bro, can I tell you something? I said, you sure can. He said, 27 years ago, my dad pulled up into a stranger's driveway and dropped me off. He said, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. He said, and your dad looked at me, and he makes the same 4 promises that you now make every child, that we love you, we'll never lie to you, we'll stick with you till you're grown, there's boundaries, don't cross them. He said, then I moved into a house with my mom and pop. And he said, from the time I was 6 until now, they've been my mom and dad. He said, what's so cool, he said, the girl that I'm married's got a 7-year-old little girl, and I now get to be dad to her just the same way that Mom and Pop were to me so many years ago. He said, isn't it cool how God's plan all works out? And he was preparing me 27 years ago.
And you hit on it when you were describing it, and a lot of people, I think, don't miss this. You broke a generational problem. Because you don't break that generational problem, it just goes to the next generation of that family, then the next. Somebody has got to stand up and say, I'm going to break this.
Mm-hmm.
This is not going to continue through our family.
And-
I'm going to start a new beginning for the
because
legacy of us.
if they had stayed
Right.
with their biological dad, it would have been bad. There would have been a lot of other things happening, and then they would have been prone to repeat that same cycle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we don't take bad kids. We got kids that come from bad circumstances. Then that's what we get to do every day. And if you walk in our office right now, we all got to roll. There's 25 people all sitting around right here, and y'all are the guys that everybody hears, but everybody's got a role. And it's the same way with the ranch. And when you walk in our office, it's got a picture of all the kids, and underneath it says Our Reason. And that's what each of us wake up every single morning. And we work for those 160 kids that call Big Oak Ranch home.
If you'd be interested in coming alongside what they're doing there, we'll put all the information in show notes today at rickandbubba.com. You can go research it for yourself. What they do, they don't do for money, but what they do does require money and partners and people that will stick with them that say, you know what, this is something I'd like to invest in, as Brodie just told you, because everybody plays a role in these incredible stories of God's hand. We'll be back.
Rick and Bubba.
The information's at rickandbubba.com in show notes if you'd like to investigate what they do and maybe decide to come along beside them and be a partner. So, Brodie, you obviously you grew up on the ranch. Your dad, your whole life was there, and then you started playing high school ball, college football at a very high level at the University of Alabama. Got a chance to go to the NFL with the Kansas City Chiefs. And
What's it like to be drafted?
Yeah, tell us that whole process.
It is a long process because, when you're coming out of college, you have this high sense of self-worth maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
had a
you
lot of
think
people
higher of yourself than maybe what other people might think of you. So you're sitting there and you're thinking, man, early second round, and then it's a long 3 hours when you wait until about the end of that third round.
Yeah.
But, I was so blessed to get drafted there and got to play for Herm Edwards, who's a great man who still keep in contact to this day. But, we were talking earlier about, how just the jump. And I played at a 1A school and went to Alabama, and that was a huge jump.
Yeah.
But playing at Alabama and jumping to the NFL is a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
Those are grown men that get paid a lot of money to hurt you.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
They're
they did a
serious
very
about
good
it.
job with my 11 surgeries. The first game that I ever played in, I was a backup quarterback, and we were playing in Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's a good team to play against.
It was 13 degrees. It had snowed 4 inches while we were playing. And I'm from here. I'm like, y'all, man, I like warm weather.
The old heart of Dixie.
Yeah. I mean, it was chilly this morning. It was 37.
Right.
And I'm sitting over there, and I got long johns on. I got my big jacket. I'm standing next to the heater, and I just got it. I'm just like, let's get out of here. We're getting beat 42-7.
No.
And it turns fourth quarter, and Herm turns around. He looks at me. He says, "Hey, kid." He called me kid for whatever reason. I took his term of endearment, but he might not know my name. I don't know.
Right.
But he said, "Hey, kid, warm up." I go, "For what?"
Yeah.
He said, "You going in. You'll be amazed how warm you get in a hurry when he tells you you're going in there to play."
The Steelers.
And, man, I went in, and I'm just stuttering through trying to even call the play. And the only thing in my mind I got going is Tony Gonzalez is running a 6-yard crossing route. And the only person that can hit me without anyone blocking them is the weak safety blitz.
Right.
That's the only two things going on in my mind, right? So I come up to the line, I start going through the cadence, and I look over to my left, and there is a Pert Plus flowing mane standing on the line of scrimmage by the name of Troy Polamalu.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm sitting there going, man, I'm about to get hit by Troy Polamalu. It sure would be cool to get hit by Troy. I don't really want to get, and all this is going
that's
really
really
hard.
hard.
So it's kind of
It's a great story, but I got to live through it.
Yeah, it was kind of. Maybe my mind was in the wrong place, obviously.
Right.
So I go through, and I'm just like, if he comes, I'm gonna get hit, but still complete it. Tony Gonzalez, and I say hut, and it looked like an ant farm. That Pert Plus flowing mane went 25 yards this way. Cornerbacks are going all over the place, and I'm just like, this doesn't look anything like film, And man, so I dropped back, and the only thing in my head is Tony Gonzalez.
Fine Tony Gonzalez.
Man, I hit my 7th step, and I let it rip. Touchdown. First play in the NFL.
Well, how about that?
Yep. Problem.
A problem.
I might have thrown it to somebody in the black and the gold. And I hit him.
Okay.
That kind of touchdown.
And
So
they took it 50 yards the opposite direction.
But it was a touchdown.
Yeah,
but it was a touchdown.
Man, I came running off the field, and Trent Green sitting there, and he's just laughing. I'm like, man, I'm only getting beat 7-0. You getting beat 42-7 in my mind, you know. But then I go up to Herm, and he's just sitting there, and he's kind of shaking his head, and he goes, "Well, kid, can't get no worse. Go run it again." That was my first play in the NFL, and I'd love to tell you it got a lot better, but
So who took it the other way? Did you get a number on that bus?
No,
I tried to forget those type things.
it was just like some really fast moving black and gold going the other way.
It was
like
at that
the ant
point in
farm.
time I went, I need to hang on as long as I can because these guys are on a different level.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we were talking about that. We've had some other guys on that are one still playing in the league, and he said for him the biggest adjustment was a receiver coming back to him in his first ever scrimmage saying, "Man, I was open," and he's like, "You're not open." Not by what I've been seeing in high school and college. And he's like, these are the greatest defensive backs in the world. That's open.
Yeah.
Pro open is different.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
6 inches is open up there. I had the same experience. First play in OTAs, ran the same play, and I didn't throw it to the dig, and I threw it to the crosser, and I thought, I completed my first pass in the NFL and OTAs, and I came back, and Coach said, "Why didn't you let it rip?" I was like, "I did let it rip." He said, "No, to the end cut." I was like, "He was covered." He said, "He ain't covered." I was like, "He was covered." He said, "We'll watch it in film." And literally, he ran through the play in film, and I went, "I told you he was covered." He said, "Buddy, that ain't covered." And
You saw color.
Yes.
There's a part of the uniform sticking
it's
out.
unbelievable. And then you watch the Aaron Rodgers and the Tom Brady's and those guys, and we would all just, in the film room, we're supposed to be watching defense. We'd be watching the quarterbacks going, how did he see that?
Right.
I mean, it's just
It's a lot going on. The ant farm, when you said that, it's just, there's a lot going
people
on.
running everywhere.
They can orchestrate an ant farm's the problem.
Right, yeah, you can come and think it's not an ant farm, and all of a sudden they do something different. We'll come back more with Brodie Croyle coming up. Check show notes for Big Oak Ranch. We'll talk a little bit about when the day came when he knew that he was to return to the ranch and now sit as executive director, and we'll spin the wonderful wheel of meat before the hour's over. Stay close.
Rick and Bubba.
Brodie Croyle is with us. We definitely will let him spin the wonderful wheel of meat. We talked about the Big Oak Ranch, what they do, and kind of how it started. You're now the executive director. Your dad, of course, what an incredible story of that being handed to you from your own father. But that wasn't a given. I mean, we just talked about, you went to pursue the NFL. I assume that you didn't automatically say, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back and be the executive director of the ranch. Tell us how that happened. When did that reality hit you?
Well, that story kind of starts when I was 11 years old. And I walked into my parents' bedroom and I said, I'm going to play in NFL. And versus them kind of reining me in and saying, hey, maybe we should shoot for the JV squad or something like that.
Right.
They said, well, let's go for it. Shoot for the moon. Worst case scenario, we end up in the stars. And from that point in time to a fault, football became my God. It became everything that I chased. It became all that I wanted in life, really. And I said and did all the right things, but that's all I wanted. That's all I chased, and was blessed enough that got there. And was it everything that I dreamed and hoped it would be? Nah. But you know what? I was blessed enough to get to go there and get to live out a dream. And once I'd had a little boy and quickly realized kind of what my career was about to look like. It was about to be 1-year deals. Your body's kind of your resume up there. And
Yep.
I'd had a lot of surgeries and just 1-year deals with no guarantees. And I had a little boy and said, you know what? I was blessed to get to go there, blessed to get to play, but it's time for the next chapter. And after that, it was like, well, what's next? And, the children of Big Oak Ranch have always had a special place in my heart, but that's my dad's deal, and he raised me to be my own man, so that's what I'm going to go do. And went to Tuscaloosa and got in business with a guy in the land and timber real estate business and loved it, and everything was going the way that we had hoped and wanted it would go. And we lived there for about a year and a half. And we were coming home, and we were talking about, the future, and if everything worked out the way we wanted it to work out, where do we see ourselves in 10 years? Well, we're not the ones out here chasing all these deals and chasing money, if you will, quote unquote. And went home and, he asked me and I said, man, I see myself back in North Alabama. The children of Big Oak Ranch have always had a special place in my heart, but that's my dad's deal. That's my family's deal. And he raised me to be my own man, so that's what I'm doing. But at some point in time, I want to be back there to be a part of the kids' lives. And went home that night, and my wife and little boy were back in Mississippi visiting her family. And, you know, us Southern Baptists can sometimes throw out the term the Lord spoke to us maybe a little too freely.
Sure.
And, you know, it was the first time in my life I'd ever felt God saying, man, I've given you everything you thought you wanted in life.
Right.
You thought you wanted to go play in the NFL. You thought you wanted money. You thought you wanted a business. You thought you wanted all these things, and there's no contentment. There's no happiness. There's no peace. When are you going to do what I called you to do? When are you going to go take care of those kids that I've put in your care? And for 2 months, I said, not right now. Why not in 10 years when it's on my time, when I get to do everything that I want to do? And after 2 months, just felt totally convicted that, you know, this is what God put us on earth to do. And just put my little boy down, was coming down to have dinner with my wife, and I just looked at her and I said, baby, I really feel God's calling us back to the ranch. And she just started crying. And I went, boy, oh boy, this ain't quite going the way that I thought it was going to go.
Right.
And she looked at me and said something that I'll never forget as long as I live. She looked at me and she said, I've been waiting for you to say that for 5 years.
Wow.
She said, me and your mom and dad and sister have spent countless hours in prayer, countless hours in conversation, but we knew it had to be on God's time. We knew it had to be on your time. She said, tell me when. I'll have us packed. And that was coming up on 3 years ago. And how cool is it that I got a wife that's patient enough to say, you know what, God, when it's your timing, we'll be back. And how cool is it that I got a dad that's faithful enough to say, you know what, God, you got this. There is no succession plan. There is no anything. Starting to get older, but I know you'll take care of us. And, you know, blessed every single day by my family and, you know, the 160 kids that we get to call family.
Two things I take away from that, and I hope I don't want anybody to miss it. First of all, and it's funny, well, it's not. This actually shouldn't surprise me at all. Today, the devotion that I had before the show was a lesson on God's permissive will and His perfect will. He works it out with you through His permissive will, allowing things to happen, teaching you this, testing you. Mm-hmm. Then there's His perfect will, which His permissive will is a tool to get you to His perfect will. So that's one thing. Mm-hmm. That was just what I was studying this morning, going, man, you know what? That's deep. Number two, your wife, your mother, and your dad prayed 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
5 years for this to take place. Not 5 days, not 5 weeks, not 5 months, which would seem like a long time.
Yeah.
5 years.
5 years. I think my mother had been praying for me a lot longer
well,
than
but
that.
Yeah, but the point is, and I have to hear that too, there's some things you keep praying about, and you're like, I mean, but I know this is what I'm supposed to be praying about. Well, it's in His time, and we say that because time for Him is no big deal.
No.
But He didn't answer to it. But we sit there and grind it out thinking, man, this seems like a long time. But
in our minds, we got the best laid plan that there is.
Right,
And
yeah.
It is a shame, and we get in our own way so much that, you know, if we just sit back and just be patient, which is not a virtue for a lot of us.
No.
But, you know, His timing and His will is perfect.
It's incredible. We'll come back, and there's more. If you want to find out more about what goes on in these incredible stories, just go to rickandbubba.com and research Big Oak Ranch yourself there in the show notes. And there's always, you know, it's amazing how they also are faithful that everything that they need, which requires a lot of money, always comes in. And that's not something you have to do, but it's something you could get to do. We'll be back. We'll spin the wonderful wheel of meat next and give away some prizes.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.